last video I posted, I titled it the country scale, and obviously we went over a country scale in the key of E. If you haven't seen that video, I'd highly suggest watching that before you continue here, because this video is it's meant to kind of pick up where that one left off, and that is today we're going to be talking about playing through country changes, right? Most commonly a 1, 4, and 5. But instead of jumping positions every time we want to change what scale we're playing, we're just going to be kind of outlining chord shapes within the same position. So once again, we're going to kind of do this in the key of E. We're not going to kind of do it. We're going to do it in the key of E, just to follow in line with what we had learned in that prior video. So we have our E scale. And then when we go to an A, we now have to think about where our A shape is within this position. And if you know your cage system, and if you know your triad shapes all over the neck, which I would also highly suggest if you don't know, I would highly suggest you start working on those. We have our E triad here, kind of that bar on that 9th fret. And then we have our A right here. It's a D shape. But we're up here, we're doing it on the kind of the 9th and 10th frets. And we can think about it as like a D shape, or kind of the top 3 notes of a C. And then obviously for our 5 chord, or the B in this case, it's just a whole step up from A, right? We just did A. So we can play our B like this. But right there, we kind of shifted out of this position that we're doing. So the way I like to think about B, or in this case, to kind of keep it generic, how I like to think about my 5 chord when I'm playing in this position is I like to think about it as a 5/7 chord. All that means is instead of the regular 7th, or like a major 7th, we're playing a flatted 7th. And that's what gives us kind of that tension that makes a 5 chord want to resolve back to our 1 chord, in this case the E. So a regular B major triad is that. The B7 is going to sound like that, which then, like I said, it makes our ear hears that and wants to then hear that E. So it's kind of cool if you think about these shapes, right? We have our E, we have our A, and we can play. So we can kind of keep that bar there the whole time. So as we kind of get into this today, all the licks and ideas and phrases and lines I'm playing are going to kind of revolve around those bass shapes as I play through the chord progressions. So yeah, let's talk a little bit though about moving between those up in this position. I'm not going to cover anything really in E, because that whole scale video I did kind of covered that already, right? But as we're playing in E, we're getting ready to go to the A. One of my favorite go-to licks is right here. And all I'm thinking about doing there, right? Here's our A. That's the same notes relative to A as this is to E. Right? So that obviously is going to work well. And then you can kind of do the same thing when we go to the 5 chord of the B. Down here on our D and our G string. And you're not tied to this one position, right? We did it up here in A. We can slide up and do it for our B shape here. So that's something simple that we've already kind of learned, that we're finding a different way to do it, but within the same position. In that intro lick or thing I kind of played, I stole a lot of that just directly from a solo I learned from Johnny Highland, right? But he's he's literally just bending, he's playing this A triad. And then resolving that back to the E. So yeah, just get creative. Just using those notes, and then messing around with other notes kind of out of that same E scale, but always bringing it back to the A when we're playing over that 4 chord. Another way we can incorporate the same idea in E as in A here, right? In the key of E we have this. So out of the same position we can do it here. And I'm kind of using the pick and some ghost notes there. But same thing, I'm literally just outlining this. And then you can move that up, walk that down, and you're back to E. And then when we're going to that 5 chord, right, like I talked about, we can play this 5-7 shape, and we can play this too. Even that sounds good. But something I like to do, we talked about doing these bends, but outlining that flat 7 is so important, right? So all I'm doing there is I'm having my pinky's on the 3rd, or that D sharp, and I'm just alternating between that B note and our A note. So like how I would use that in a progression, right? We go from the A right? We do that little lick in B, and then we can resolve it to the E. One thing to note and I'm going to get into some music theory here, so bear with me, but when we're playing that 5 chord, right? The 3rd of B is a D sharp here, or as guitar players like to think about it as an E flat, but it's a D sharp. And if you remember from the earlier video, playing that D sharp or that regular 7th in the key of E was kind of, it wasn't a no-no, but we used the flat 7th instead, right? Right, when we're in the key of E, we're using that flat 7th, we're jumping over that D sharp. But when we're playing the 5 chord, that D sharp or that regular 7th is back on the table. And not only is it on the table, it's highly recommended that we outline that, right? Because that's the major 3rd in the key of B. And it's that sound that helps give us that tension that makes us want to resolve to the 1. So as you're playing through, that's kind of the one thing I would alter, in addition to our original scale that we learned, is adding that D flat or that D sharp while we're playing over the 5 chord. And if you just listen to this, right, by just literally playing that, your ear will tell you, oh, he's playing the B, he's playing over a B chord now. So that's kind of how powerful that one single note can be. So here's a great example of what I mean by kind of outlining that D sharp. Right, when we're going in the key of E, and it goes to that B chord. Right, so I'm just walking down from that major 3rd back to our root, then going from our root to that flat 7th. be back to our one chord again. One other thing I'll note is, just like the scale, this is obviously movable, right? So we're basing this out of our E triad shape here, but we also have E triads all over the neck, right? We can play our C shape E chord, and this is a good exercise too when really just for any genre of music, but before you, maybe, you know, if you just sit down to practice, just work on going from a 1 to a 4 to a 5 in a bunch of different positions. So what that would look like here, we have our A, right, it's just this, and then we have our B, and just like that I've resolved to that E chord. So that's just one quick example. We're not tied just to the 1, 4, 5 in this one position. Obviously we have our open chords as well, and ad nauseum, right, up and down the neck. So let's talk about changing between our shapes down here a little bit, right? We have our E, we have our A, we have our B, and then we have our E again. The nice thing here is, since we've already kind of worked out of this shape, doing our licks up here when we were playing our A chord, those same things all apply here now, just over E again. And then we go to our A triad here, and that's a great place to kind of do that minor to major third. I've shown this lick in other videos as well. And then when it goes to our B chord, we're set up here to play the actual country scale that I taught you over this B shape. And then, like I showed you, just resolving back to our E, or our root here. So that's kind of the other nice thing, is once you've kind of mastered a few ideas and phrases over an actual shape, then you can relate that shape, right? Here's our A, well here's our E. So we learned some ideas that work over this shape here. Well, then we can now make those same ideas work over our E chord by just moving it here. So I'm just going to improvise a quick little solo at this point, kind of putting some of these ideas into context. As you listen through it, try to note when the song is changing keys. I'm not going to have a backing track or anything, but it's going to be like a very definite 1 to a 4 to a 5 pattern. So yeah, let's just give this a whirl. So really quickly, we'll just kind of talk about that. To begin with, I'm kind of starting with I'm doing all these notes out of that country scale. I just added a few little pickup lines there. And then I'm just outlining this A now. And then when we go to the B chord, just outlining this, then back to our E, and then when I came down here, now I'm playing out of this E shape, right here. I'm just hammering on between that minor third and that fourth. And then when we go to our 5 chord, that B, these are just notes out of that B country scale. And then we can resolve it. back to our E. So hopefully that kind of made sense. I tried to keep this video a little bit shorter, but I think it kind of got away from me, right? As they tend to do. But yeah, the whole point of this is so that you can visualize these chord shapes within a single position, right? So you don't have to jump over and find your new root every time, like on the low E string. You're playing in the key of E. You know your A's here. You know your B's here. You're back to your E. So anyways, yeah. Hopefully that all made sense. Any questions, like always, leave them down below. And if you have kind of suggestions or like country-related questions that you want to see videos on as well, like let me know about those as well. I'm always kind of looking for suggestions and ideas to make these videos on. So thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Keep on practicing this stuff. You will get the hang of it. And yeah, we will see you all in the next lesson.